Talking Solutions continues. I'm your host, Terry Springs. Tomorrow is Recycling Day, so we got with a guy who knows a lot about it, Scott Seastrand with Western Elite, to give the rest of us some tips. Hello, Scott.
Hello.
Western Elite is one of the big recycling helpers for the state of Nevada. It's all got to do with us taking care of our environment, taking care of this place where we all live together. And since it is Recycling Day tomorrow, we can all do something to make a difference. You're the guy, you're the expert who can tell us as consumers what we can do to help with Recycling Day.
Well, recycling is kind of broken down into, I'm going to say, manageable parts, and everybody has to look at what segment they exist in, whether or not you're just a resident, homeowner, if you're a business, if you're a construction site, if you're involved with landscaping. You know, many of us have properties that have to have landscaping done. All of those different pieces go into different directions. And just to kind of separate that real quickly, the main waste supplier here in the valley, in most of the parts of town, now offer a single stream recycling container at homes. And within that single stream recycling, which is commingled materials where no one has to segregate it necessarily other than outside of things that you would throw away, that's probably the number one thing that residential homeowners can do, is just be mindful of what they can place in that container, and that will be diverted out of the landfill.
Right. Yeah, we've got those great big wheeled containers outside the house. And so we have one for our regular refuse, and then we have another one for our recyclable items. But I understand not everything can go in there.
That's true. The main provider of waste here in the valley only handles certain, I'm going to say, commodity things. Other segments that are out there, and we can come back and talk more specifically there, but I know, for example, our facility, Western Elite, we handle landscaping materials, that we compost the materials. One of the other things that is a major other section would be construction waste, and that's one of the other things that we do that's pretty unique, in that we go through and pull out and recycle as much as we possibly can out of our containers. And people may have seen those containers around. They have a big WE on the side that go to construction sites or possibly landscaping, remodel, whatever. And those, you can be assured, that's one of the easiest things you can do if you're doing a construction project to ensure there's recycling going on. That's the main thing that our company does. We don't do the smaller recycling, but we know all about it, and we deal in the commodity markets, and we can give you some advice and thoughts about that. But that construction piece, or if you're a commercial operator, there are several different companies that offer recycling services for commercial, different businesses that will take your segregated recyclable materials and do something with them. Those are kind of the main segments, and maybe you want to talk about what homeowners can do, Terry.
No matter where you live, with Recycling Day happening tomorrow, there's some way that you can make a difference with the items that you've got in your midst.
Running through just some general things that are in everyone's home that we go through that sometimes we just don't think about, that would in fact be a commodity that can be recycled, reused, and repurposed. For example, one of the biggest ones, if you ever go to one of these big box stores, you're going to buy things and you're going to end up with boxes, or we do so much shipping nowadays with things being directly shipped to our homes, we end up with a lot of boxes. Well, we should never have a need to put in the waste container cardboard, of any kind. I mean, anytime we have that, break it down, put it in that recycling container. To me, that's one of the major areas that we can all easily do to help repurpose all that cardboard, because we're doing more and more cardboard than ever.
Absolutely. The only one too, Scott, that I had heard about talking with people about recycling, when you have a pizza box that has the leftover cheese and stuff, that doesn't go.
No, what happens is it's difficult. I think that a recycling company can possibly use it, but it is not what they call prime material, because with it, I'll use the word contaminated, it has a lesser value. They can still use it, but it does have a lesser value. Cleaner cardboard is better and easier, and maybe most of the time, if it's not a clean pizza box, I would dispose of that in the waste container. But If it was clean, it's just like any other cardboard that can be used. You can go through the whole paper side of it, newspaper, junk mail, any kind of magazine, anything that's a paper product, office paper. Those kinds of things are really simply a very good value for sustainability. And what I mean by that is if we try to recycle some things that don't have a resale value or a cost involved, that the commodity itself can be repurposed through some process that's economical, and that's the whole key, that's economical, then what ends up happening is the materials don't end up actually getting through the recycling process, or they end up not knowing what to do if they're not able to actually sell the commodity. Imagine selling the commodity for less than it can actually be repurposed for. So things like paper are amazingly good because those economically can manage the cost. Same with cardboard, where they can repurpose them and it's economically viable to be sustainable. They can continue to keep bringing in those products, repurpose them, get them back out into the community, and they're in a position where they can financially pay the bills to make that cycle continue to work. So paper's a perfect thing. Phone book, even there are different kinds of food cartons that are acceptable that can go in and be repurposed. And those are economically sorted. I think most of us know about aluminum cans. If you're a soda drinker and you run through a lot of that, I think some have developed that great habit of setting them aside and putting them in the recycling container. And again, a very viable commodity that can be done. Some that are maybe different. Anything that's your plastics, let's say dishwasher soap container or fabric softener or detergent, because that material is able to be processed even though it's been used. And so anything plastic is good. I would say another one that gets a lot of attention is grocery sacks made out of plastic. They have a repurpose at home sometimes, but ultimately those can go back into the plastic recycling container. It's better there than it is in the waste stream, because in the waste stream it ends up with all the challenges that everybody complains about, because ultimately some of those things don't get handled appropriately and they can become part of the environmental issue. But if they're in the recycling stream, then they're carefully managed and made sure that they're being taken care of. They can be recycled.
It sounds like Scott Seastrand with Western Elite. We're talking about Recycling Day, which is happening tomorrow. The items that you're suggesting that pretty much all of us have in our home somewhere or at our place of business, wherever, these are things that are cost effective to recycle. So it makes perfect sense that we don't throw them in the trash and just add it to the landfill, but go ahead and get it recycled.
Absolutely. Just changing the way we think about things. It does take a slight amount of effort, but it's not that difficult. Besides that, you'll have more space for the things that you really need to dispose of in your container if you're actually fully effectively using the single stream container. There's other things like egg cartons that are out of, I'll call it styrofoam, but it's a particular type of plastic classification. Those can be recycled. Anything that you use in the kitchen, plastics or cardboards, those are the main sought after, besides large cardboard boxes that we all end up with more and more as time goes on. Those ought to be just automatic, and aluminums like cans. One other interesting one is your soda liter bottles. Those right there are all made out of plastic. Water bottles made out of plastics. Those have the ability to be repurposed quite effectively. Another area is glass. I don't think that there's that much glass out there in the average home. Some commercial applications might apply from a restaurant or others, but if you have glass, again, you can put glass into single stream recycling there at home. And those economically can be processed and it can be sustainable because the recycler themselves can actually recover enough of the cost of segregating everything that's required to package and ship them off to a repurposing company. Those are pretty easy to think about. I suppose one thing we should talk about, Terry, is what is not a recyclable.
Absolutely.
So as you're thinking about what should be in the waste stream, household hazardous waste, let's stop about that for a second. I know that the main residential provider here in Las Vegas, I believe it's every Wednesday, they alternate from one of their sites to another. They have two main facilities where they will take what we deem to be household hazardous waste on those occasions. And I believe that you could look on their website and they could tell you, but I would just throw out some general things. For example, cleaners, maybe pesticides. If you want to know what to do with those, maybe unused paint. If it's dried out in the can, that can go directly into the waste stream. But that's probably the most challenging part of the waste stream, is trying to get the hazardous things out. Not only is it not recyclable, it shouldn't be in the straight up waste stream and needs to have a little attention given to take it directly to a site and have it disposed of on those given days. Beyond that, let's take clothing. Clothing does not get recycled by our local provider. That would be an item if you cannot find a good reuse of the clothing. There's a lot of stores that need those kind of donations that help our community. I think most people recognize that, but you would not put that in a recycling container. Food waste. All of that needs to go into your regular waste. That is not a recycled item. A comment about that on a large scale, I know Western Elite has facilities where we work with strip properties where they have many restaurants or buffets, and they segregate their food waste, and we pick up. Some of it is composted from our own facilities, and some of it we utilize in a pig farm where we're able to repurpose that food, basically food scraps, in the ecosystem of feeding pigs, and then the pigs are harvested and it continues on. But on a private home basis, there's not a good system in place, and I know that our local residential provider does not do food waste in that regard where it could be commingled, so you would avoid putting food waste in there. Another one would be car parts. You're doing some of your own work. There is metal in it, but I believe that our single stream containers at homes, they do not want to have car parts in there. But if you've got metal parts, let's say an alternator, you could go down to one of the buyback centers here in the valley, which would in fact give you some kind of a cost for bringing in what type of metal it might be. So those are some of the things you would want to avoid putting into the recycling container, and maybe even some of them out of the actual waste stream.
That's good to know. Scott Seastrand with Western Elite. By the way, Scott, I know what you guys do. I know that you deal with more commercial and building services that you help with in construction.
Correct.
But are they the blue bins that I see with Western Elite?
Yeah, our containers have a big WE on the side for Western Elite, and they are blue, and you'll see them all over town. Those are called drop boxes or dumpsters. People call them different things. But that's, as I say, one of the sure ways that you can make sure that your material's being recycled for landscaping or other things. And that sounds like a plug, but we are one of the largest in the state of Nevada for not only hauling construction and demolition waste, but one of the largest in recycling by tonnage of the stuff that we're able to divert from going directly into the landfill. So that's one other way on recycling days. If you have a project, you know that we're going through and processing that material rather than directly taking it into a landfill.
Scott Seastrand, we knew that Western Elite is big into recycling here in Nevada, so you are the guy to contact for information on how we could all get involved in some way with Recycling Day. I'm going for the cardboard boxes right off the front, because after the holidays, all the stuff we had shipped in, you got a stack of boxes sitting there. You know, it feels good so many different ways just to break those down, get them into the recycling stream, and get your house all cleaned out.
Absolutely.
For tomorrow, for Recycling Day, and say, hey, I was part of it.
I would encourage individuals to look at how they can repurpose the way that they process some of this material, and teach your kids, because I think any time that we can reuse the Earth's resources, it just makes sense to be able to take the same resources instead of just packing them away forever, utilizing them, because ultimately we're either mining them out or we're harvesting them, and wherever we can reuse something. And in fact, in many ways, it can reduce costs, because the supplier that can repurpose these things can actually take the raw materials at a lower price than having them mined. So we're benefiting economically by taking advantage, but we're also helping each other out as joint neighbors of our planet and taking care of the resources that have been given to us to use wisely.
And we're putting less stuff in the landfill.
Absolutely.
Scott Seastrand, tomorrow it is Recycling Day. Just wanted to get some quick tips on things we could all do to take better care of our environment. And you guys with Western Elite are a great resource for information.
Thank you, Terry, and anytime.
Happy Recycling Day. Scott, thanks so much, and we appreciate you taking some moments with us today on Talking Solutions. You have a great day.